AFC absent, and PPP and PNC playing a dangerous game with Guyana's future, says Glen Lall. Glen Lall, a prominent advocate for transparency in Guyana, has publicly criticized the governing People's Progressive Party, PPP, and the opposition People's National Congress, PNC, for what he describes as a secretive and self-serving approach to managing Guyana's oil wealth. According to Lall, both parties have marginalized the interests of everyday Guyanese, choosing to operate behind closed doors with little to no transparency. In his latest address, Lall highlighted the political and strategic maneuvering by both parties to keep vital information about the nation's oil sector from the public. Our oil blessing has practically become a taboo, Lall stated. It's treated as a private affair by the PPP and PNC, something too sensitive for the very people who own it to even hear about. Lall accused the two major political parties of treating the nation's wealth as their private business, questioning their commitment to transparency and public accountability. He argued that despite regular press appearances, key figures in the PPP and PNC have failed to provide meaningful answers about Guyana's oil management. Press conferences have become a smokescreen, Lall said, describing the PPP and PNC strategies to evade substantial questions on the oil sector, specifically criticizing Jagdeo and Aubrey Norton. Lall criticized the government's media spokesperson, Jagdeo, for using a carefully crafted approach that provides little clarity on oil matters, leaving citizens confused and uninformed. Similarly, Lall pointed to Aubrey Norton, whose recent press conferences have introduced tighter restrictions on questions, further stifling open dialogue on national issues. This approach by both parties reflects a unified stance: avoid discussing ExxonMobil and Guyana's oil wealth, while ensuring that only controlled narratives reach the public. According to Lall, the nation's leaders are intentionally choosing to sidestep real transparency measures, such as ring fencing, tax protocols, environmental safeguards, and the establishment of an independent petroleum commission. Instead, they seem focused on maintaining power, while keeping the public in the dark on critical matters. Two devils, one tactic. What we're witnessing is a synchronized game, Lall continued. The PPP and PNC have become gatekeepers, allowing only select pieces of information to reach the people. They keep the real dollars and the details of our oil wealth hidden, crafting a controlled narrative to keep us in the dark. Lall called for genuine reforms to protect Guyana's interests, saying the current political tactics are a betrayal of the people's trust. He expressed deep concern that this lack of transparency and accountability is allowing both the PPP and PNC to operate without scrutiny. The people of Guyana deserve to know the truth about our resources, yet both parties are keeping it from us. In closing, Lall vowed to continue his efforts to expose the truth and push for genuine accountability in Guyana's oil sector. My commitment remains firm: to shine a light on the tactics of these so-called leaders who would rather protect their interests than the future of this nation.
The AFC is long gone, laid to rest. It's the PPP and the PNC, a stage 5 cancer, that are choking the lifeblood out of every Guyanese today. Look what has happened. Our oil blessing has practically become a taboo, a personal bedroom secret that's only whispered between the PPP and the PNC, while the rest of us are kept in the dark. It's as if the nation's wealth is their private and personal business, something too sensitive to share with us, the very people who owns it. Both parties are playing a careful game, a strategy crafted to avoid transparency and accountability with this oil wealth we have. Let's start with Jagdeo, the man fully in charge of Guyana's oil. He meets with the media every week, speaking for both the government and his party. Yet, if reporters don't specifically ask him about what's going on in the oil sector, he says very little or nothing at all. And when he does respond to questions, he knows exactly how to skirt around them without giving a clear or truthful answer. What he doesn't avoid completely, his responses are so complicated. You would need a university degree in English to untangle the madness from the nonsense that comes out his mouth. Jagdeo press conferences have now become a smoke screen, people. A weekly exercise of saying a lot, but revealing a little or nothing. Please, I beg all of you, don't just take my word for it. Go back and review his press conferences for the last 4 years. And now let's turn to Norton and his PNC. Them have a different approach, but with the same goal in mind, keeping tight control over what is said to avoid addressing Exxon and this oil wealth. Their press conferences has always been one in which they would read from a prepared statement on selected topics, what they want to engage the nation with. And after that, reporters were allowed to ask questions on any subject. But of recent, they have changed tactics. They are now telling the reporters they can only ask questions based on the statement that was read. So if them don't mention oil, which they hardly do, then don't ask them anything about oil. That's off the table. This is the new PNC way of sidestepping any real conversation about this oil wealth with ExxonMobil. It's a clear way of closing the door on transparency and accountability in that sector. Now creating a control environment where questions are limited to whatever they feel like discussing. You could be that. So, if Norton wants to talk about smuggled chicken, then only smuggled chicken is up for a discussion. Nothing else. You guys see where Guyana is going and where we're heading? Two devils, each with their own tactics to keep us in the dark. So, I ask, which one here is darker for our future? You tell me. What we're seeing is a synchronized game where both parties play the role of gatekeepers, allowing only select pieces of information to be shared with the nation. Yes, they are creating a control narrative, telling us what they think we need to know, while leaving us in the dark on the real dollars, the massive dollars from our oil wealth. For the PPP and the PNC, it's not about openly discussing the country's wealth with us anymore. It's about managing it quietly behind closed doors by themselves. They both know that real transparency will demand overnight changes in the oil sector, which they are not willing to make. Like ring fencing, taxes, meters, full protection from an oil spill, a petroleum commission with oil exports is not on their books. Putting Guyana interests first is not on their agenda. Both parties seem more focused on staying in power or getting into power and maintain that same relationship with ExxonMobil, where Guyana's oil fattening the foreigners while the nation starves. It's a game of silence, avoidance, and control. They are betting that if they keep people in the dark and restrict information, the nation will stay ignorant and dotish, so they can do the thing with the people of Guyana. Yes, they could do their thing while the people of Guyana are left hoping and guessing what little might come their way. God bless you. God bless them. And in the process, I am pretty much certain he will continue to shower his blessings upon me for doing my best to show you exactly who these brilliant leaders are.